I have the most recent betting odds up. I don't think the most recent betting odds that I could find.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if these are the most recent betting odds, and the only reason I say that is because there are no odds available for any of these things today, Monday morning, because I bet you they've probably taken it all off the board. So the odds that I'm looking at are from like less than a week ago, but as you informed me in the post game, at least one of the odds have shifted significantly in six man. What were we going to say?
It's now changed. So it's weird what's going on with six man. So
what is, do you want, okay, so get out of the way now.
So if you were listening to the post game last night, you know this. If you weren't, overnight, Saturday into Sunday, Malcolm Brogdon's odds for sixth man shifted crazily and went from, he was like a plus
crazily,
like it was plus 220 and then went to like minus 550 at one point. Like Emmanuel Quickly, you could have got it plus like 350 at one point on Sunday.
And what is it now?
Now Quickly's the favorite again. He's minus 220. So what it sounds like, because this would never happen, right? The votes are leaking to Vegas, and as the votes are leaking, Vegas is adjusting. So Quickly's now the favorite once again to win sixth man of the year. The odds for sixth man are nuts at the moment. So I don't even know what to believe anymore. I don't know if the Boston media propaganda worked. I don't know if the New York propaganda worked. All I know is that this is confirmation that the secrecy and the honor of awards voting is like, no, these dudes are making votes and are making bets as they vote. So that's what I would assume is going on right now.
Okay. With that being said, MVP, last odds I have here. Embiid minus 600, overwhelming favorite. Jokic plus 700, Antetokounmpo plus 800, Jason Tatum plus 25,000. So it's a three-man race. Joel Embiid is my MVP. What say you?
That the end, the pod's over. No, so it's funny. This has been the most basketball I've ever watched this season. Just with having to like prep for the pregame pods and wanting to be informed on the league and, you know, be part of the conversation. So I'm as informed as possible. And it's arguable by the math that Jokic has been better. There's three factors, which is why I would go Embiid also. For one, I'm sorry. It matters to me that he takes 5 more shots a game. It matters to me that the weight of the offense is more in how many points he scores rather than how many times he passes. And I'm sorry, like the introduction of impact metrics into my life this year and understanding them more, it really does feel like we're judging home run hitters. But like if a guy hits 49, but another guy hits 42, that doesn't mean the guy at 49 is a better home run hitter than the guy that hits 42. They're just both in the 40s. It's like percentile at this point. Embiid is in the 99th percentile of all of the stats that Jokic is in the 100th percentile in, which is not a big enough difference for me to be like, it's not close. The Sixers won more games. It seemed like every single time Embiid was on a national game outside of the one game against Denver I thought that would have solidified it if he had 45 that night, but like 3 nights later he had 51 against the Celtics and it made up for
He might have solidified it then with that. That was the makeup for the not playing in the Denver. And again, we could get into the like, you know, if Embiid went to the Sixers that night and was like, I'm playing, would they really have said no? Like, I don't want to make it that binary. Like, these are big decisions, and am I really going to sit here and hold it against Joel Embiid? Some people will hold it against him that he didn't play in that game. I personally don't feel comfortable not doing that, and it's not. And by the way, that one game should not, as Doc said, and I agree with him on this. One game shouldn't make the difference.
And like the last part of this, I'm sorry, it just matters to me that every single player swears by him. We had an all-star draft this year.
Yeah,
the all-star starters were drafted. Joel Embiid was the first pick. The second to last pick was Nikola Jokic. That's LeBron James and Giannis drafting. the consensus around players in the league is, how is it not Embiid? Like, I understand like what Jokic does. He's not bad. He's great. But the harder matchup for us every night is Joel Embiid. But every former player swears by him too. Except JJ Redick. Apologies to JJ Redick.
So I'll push back against that because I do think that is where I understand Joel Embiid is not an American-born player, obviously. But I do think that and I'm not making this into a race thing, but Joel Embiid has an American game. It's give me the ball. I want the ball. I'm taking the shot. It's not Jokic. Jokic is not that. And I think American-born players and the majority of the people who are chiming in on this are the guys who identify with and respect the Embiid thing more than Jokic. Here's where it is for me. And this, I don't want to get into a whole discussion about this, but I think the last 2 years, I don't think we ever got to the point of needing to pick apart the advanced stats case for Jokic because he was such an overwhelming. He was so clearly the choice, whether it was because of games played, whether it was because of the counting stats were not that far apart, and the advanced stats were, I mean, talk about a chasm. This year, it's gotten more into like, well, wait a minute, hold on. How much faith should we be putting into these defensive metrics at all? Because, and I think enough people have chimed in to be like what? Here's what it comes down to me. Whether Nikola Jokic is like an average defender, a slightly above average defender, a slightly below average defender, if there is a big moment in a big game, what are you trying to do as an offense? You're trying to challenge Nikola Jokic. There is no question about that. You are trying to challenge Nikola Jokic, and he has been challenged many times this year, and he has come up small many times this year. And then he goes down the other end of the floor, and he largely makes up for it, sometimes by shooting and sometimes by passing. If you compare that game plan, that strategy that offenses have versus in Philly, we can't go anywhere near Joel Embiid, because that's going to end poorly for us. That gap on the defensive end, to me, is certainly bigger than the gap on the offensive end. How much bigger, I don't know. But then when you factor in that the games played for the first time, I think since we've been talking about these two players over the last 3 years, is so small. Embiid, 66 games.
69 for Jokic. 69
for Jokic, it's certainly small enough. And the gap between those two sides. And then, like, again, like you said, I think you nailed it. 5 more shots a game, like that shit adds up, yeah. You know? And it's like, that every night. And by the way, it's even more than that, because in close games down the stretch, who's taking every shot? And if the team wants to have a chance of winning, it's Joel Embiid. So he's the MVP for me.
And it's real quick, it's natural for us to be like, I think the MVP conversation has always been like, oh, you can't give it to KD. Look at his teammates. He's got like the year that Steph and KD were on the same team. It just like it disqualified both of them from being MVP candidates. They both finished either 5 and 6 or 6 and 7 in all the conversations. And it's like, well, so Jokic gets Murray and Porter back, and that's just going to penalize him, because that's why all of his numbers, all of his counting stats are all down this year. He's averaging 3 less points per game. He's averaging 3 less rebounds per game. The only thing that's up really is like the efficiency, because he's taking less shots, and the assists because he's got better teammates now. But like last year, it was 27, 14, and 8, which when we had the conversation was like only Wilt's ever done this.
Yeah.
So you understand why it's Jokic, just from a counting stat standpoint. All those numbers are down. That's not a bad season. He's a second place for MVP in my book, but like a 9 for 15 in your shooting stats on the season when Embiid is taking 20 shots a game. I'm sorry. The workload was heavier on him. He had more wins in a tougher conference. I have to go Embiid on this. And to the point we made a couple weeks ago, this was a Jokic-led race 3 months ago. Embiid went and got it. This has nothing to do with the very misguided Kendrick Perkins, you're all racist campaign that happened.
Yes,
no,
I agree.
Embiid's play dictated the switch in how this award now became his. And so you got to give him credit for that.